Welcome back. This week, Designomics Preeti Vyas catches up with leading brand experts from corporates like Vodafone, SR and Ergo. In her conversation, she finds out how these companies use design to build their core businesses. Let's find out more.
Today's topic of Designomics is actually, with the wonderful panelists we have today, approach various subjects about design being essentially a strategy into designing of processes, of articulating it into various levels of design expressions which help and aid the growth of businesses. Let my first question be to Atul. When, as director of MICA, 7 years ago, you actually instituted the design management program. What actually led you to do that?
Well, it was really something I discovered while I was traveling overseas looking for international collaborations for MICA, and happened to meet the Design Council in the UK and one of the universities, University of Central England in Birmingham, who run a very interesting course in design management as opposed to the technical aspects of design. I also then went and met the Design Management Institute in Boston, USA, and realized that they had developed a series of interesting case studies for the business schools in the US. So between the Design Council UK and the Design Management Institute, it suddenly struck me that design management as a strategic tool, as a discipline in education, in business management education, actually sharpens the logical way by which the mind looks at systems and processes.
I think design also, apart from being of great value in all the external interfaces you mentioned, is really at the core of a management strategy, a business strategy itself. And I think you would be best to address this question too, because you are now, in a sense, a corporate communication head of a large conglomerate, and therefore a custodian for evolving the brand values internally in the organization to align everybody to a vision, and then taking it outside into various manifestations.
2 years ago, we did a very interesting exercise where we rebranded ourselves, our logo changed.
Yes.
And this whole concept of go beyond the logo, look beyond the logo, was the most critical element of our strategic changes that we adopted. So we look at design as a reflection of our inherent policies and processes. If that is not the case, then any design slapped on from the exterior is not going to work. So inherent value for SR is positive action. That's what drives every SR, right? And we said this has to then transform into the exterior, which is why you see the positive sign, which is the PM mark, the positive action mark. And that kind of translates into the vision of the organization as well, which is to be a respected global entrepreneur through the power of positive action. If you look at all these internal thinking, then automatically design flows out of it. So design to us is not like this one great logo and it's been slapped onto everything. It is being driven from the core value of the organization.
When we talk about design being sort of partnering a vision, it is actually visionary thinking. You're actually visualizing and projecting where you're going. And as a designer, I feel that we work best when we partner businesses who already are aligned to that kind of thinking, who don't think of design as an afterthought, who don't think of design as a little just make us look good and feel good, but actually get with the team, integrate with the way we think, and help us move ahead.
Right, because if you think it's only a graphic or somebody's artistic thought process, if it does not marry into the business thought process, how good is that? I mean, today if Airtel, I'm giving an example of Airtel because it has just gone and it's fresh in everybody's mind. If it had not wanted to reflect the international touch and feel, or the fact that it's a global enterprise now, how good would it have been? Already people have very, very strong views on the way the logo is coming through. But I'm sure Sunil Mittal is not a dumb guy, he's a smart guy. He would have thought through this entire process. So sometimes the artistic guys may not like that logo because they know, oh, what's the big floozy A doing in there? But if you think about Sunil Mittal's business strategy, it might just have a plug. Similarly for us, positive action is geography neutral for us. It is age neutral, it is employee neutral, and it applies to every international market of ours. So for us, it is a global brand. Our positive action mark can apply to any country. You tell me one country which does not believe in positive action.
This brings me to you, Rohit, as CEO of Vodafone. you are really about creating fantastic experiences through this very vibrant and very cluttered territory. And so let's hear you talk about how the name Vodafone itself was evolved, and how do you live through the branding strategy to create this fabulous experience of telecom.
Look at the very fact, the name, voice, data and phone. That's Vodafone 4. And what's the design of the logo? It comes with just a speech mark. So it's the beginning of the speech mark and the closure of the speech mark, which is there. And the way the design of the logo has evolved, and globally across the world, whenever Vodafone launches a 3G, in the speech mark there is a 3 and a G which comes in. So look at that. Like Shivnath was talking about brand change, I think the biggest brand change which happened in India was from Hutch to Vodafone. 10,000 employees, about 15,000 retailers, about 1,500 channel partners, and can you imagine the consumers at that time? We were sitting at 10 million plus. But it was all embracing the brand itself in the organization first. The organization needed to understand and empathize with the brand, and then only could it, communicate. And what was the ethos at that time? Simplicity, trust. Why? Because when you communicate with the consumer, it is very, very important. Like Shivnath was talking, it has to be very simple and very understandable.
Yes. I think, Aparna, let's talk a little bit about your being director of Ergo, where you have actually integrated, design values, design thinking from the perspective of consumers, in terms of safety, in terms of eco-friendly materials, and, in terms of design and aesthetics, keeping in mind the Indian consumer. I think that's something that, if you can elaborate a little bit more on, it will really help.
Yeah, thanks, Preeti. Actually, the whole business of Ergo, which is modular office furniture, started with design. It wasn't that, like many companies, they start from a manufacturing base or an industrial engineering base. We actually said we want to produce this. Let's find the people who are the best at designing this in the world. Let's get them on board first, and then let's think about setting up our factory and our distribution systems. And it was really, we started almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. So it was all about keeping these considerations in mind of ergonomics and safety, also technology, how do you incorporate that? That was a time when computers were really beginning to enter the Indian workplace for the first time. But I think the biggest difference to our business was the fact that we started working with a furniture designer who had produced a product already and who knew and understood this whole business, and then we brought in the manufacturing, the sales and distribution, and the other elements. So that, I think, is what really gave us the edge. And design is ultimately a source of differentiation. When we talk about Designomics, it really is a source of differentiation, which, as we've heard today, is so difficult to get in today's business. I mean, you've got 12 mobile phones, you've got 12 to 15 operators. How do you differentiate yourself? You are always, there's only so much you can do at the end of the day with pricing, there's only so much you can do with distribution, but it's the design which is integrated into the personality of the brand, the positioning of the brand, the product features, the retail experience. That's what ties all of it together. So when we start looking at it as a source of differentiation and a source of competitive advantage, that's when you really start seeing the return coming, and it starts becoming a strategic activity, I feel.
I think that it is fantastic to hear all of you speak about design being essentially a conceptual activity, a strategic activity. And I think that we all know the importance of the craft of design being the visual expression of a branding, being the visual expression of maybe a retail outlet or furniture and the various products that you represent. But I think what has really come out from this discussion, at least for me, is that there are businesses out there who are strong evangelists of the design movement, who are advocating that, and not only that, have integrated it into their own business practices. You, of course, actually taking it further into talking about it, hopefully converting people to this cause.
The Designomics tribe, they're growing slowly but surely. Time now to head into a short breather, but stay tuned. Coming up is PETA President Ingrid Newkirk talking to us about how her organization shot to fame thanks to its ad campaigns.